Weekend in Canada. Hello, welcome to FFRF's Ask an Atheist. I'm Dan Barker. I'm co-president of the Freedom from Religion Foundation, coming to you live from the Stephen Uhl Friendly Atheist Studio in Freethought Hall, the national office of the Freedom from Religion Foundation in Madison, Wisconsin. And if I sound a little funny today, this morning I had a surprise crown put on a lower tooth. I didn't know that was going to happen. So my whole bottom of my lip is numb. That doesn't mean that all atheists are going to sound kind of stupid. It's just today the way I'm talking. But I'll make it through this. Today, we're going to talk about if I can talk, we're going to talk about a weekend in Canada, which is a free thought gathering, which is called BAHACON. That's B-A-H-A-C-O-N. And we're going to talk today with the organizer of that conference and with one of the featured speakers of the conference. As always, we want your questions on our live show today on Ask an Atheist. And you can put them in the Facebook comments, or you can send us an email to askanatheist@ffrf.org. And if it's family friendly, we might read it on the air today. So, first of all, joining us is the organizer of BAHACON. He's a longtime Canadian member of FFRF, Robert Barnes. So, how's it going, Bob?
Just great, Dan. Thanks.
So, tell us what BAHACON stands for.
Well, BAHA, the first four letters, stands for Blue Water Atheists, Humanists, and Agnostics, and CON, just for the conference.
And so Sarnia, Ontario is called the Blue Water area. Is that why?
Yes.
Of the Blue Water.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really a beautiful area. And also joining us today is one of the featured speakers of the event, a former preacher like me, Dave Warnock. He now has a secular ministry called Dave Out Loud or Dying Out Loud? What do you call it now? Dying Out Loud, okay. So thanks for joining us again today, Dave.
Hey, Dan. Good to see you again.
So what are you going to talk about at this conference?
I don't know. I wait till the Spirit leads, man. I just let the Spirit lead. You know how it is.
Yeah,
you know how it is. Sure.
Well, last year you let the Spirit lead you, and it was really, well, you're very funny. You have a lot to say. But we'll come back to you and talk about, actually, dying out loud is not just metaphorical. You're actually having a serious problem in your life, so we'll come back and talk about that. But back to Bob. Tell us, Bob, how did this BAHACON come to be? This is the second one, right?
Yes. We come up with the idea back in 2020, and then COVID came. We had to put aside for a bit, but we formed a nonprofit, and we hold these conferences to raise money for charity. And we're a small group, but we're a very active group. And we started out with a couple of small events. One, we had Bob Ripley come to town, and we held it at the local library, which holds about 400 people. And we filled the place. Wow. And gave us the courage, hey, we can go bigger. So
he's another former preacher.
I've been probably at 30 different conferences in my life. I go to all the FFRF ones I can, Madison for sure, but I go to quite a few of them. And so I've got a very good experience in what conferences are like and what people expect. So.
Wow. So we have Bruce, we have a video of the conference. Here we go. BAHACON. Yeah, and there's on the Sunday we take a trip on a boat. That's the St. Clair River between Canada and the United States. You can watch both countries from there. There's Hemant Mehta, there's Seth Andrews, a lot of the speakers. There's Bob himself there, going between the countries on a really fun cruise. Oops, we're going around the world there. So that happens after the conference, those who want to stay on for Sunday. So Bob, are we going to do the cruise again this year?
Yes.
Wow.
Unfortunately, we think we're going to sell it out, so there's going to be a few people disappointed.
Well, Well, I guess I could give them my seat if somebody really wants to come on it.
No, that's not necessary. There's still ones available, and the boat actually is licensed for 192 people,
Wow.
but we cut it off at 160 because we don't want people to be crowded.
Well, and you need room to put up the food table and all those things, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that was a lot of fun. So BAHACON, this is the second year, and you're right on the border, and you go to conferences all over the place. But you know, the Freedom from Religion Foundation deals with state-church separation in our country. We have the First Amendment, and how does it compare with Canada? Does Canada have something similar to our First Amendment, or what is state church like in Canada?
It's similar. We're close. It's amazing how when people live in a border city like I do and get a lot of their television out of Detroit and stuff like that. So we get we got a real feeling on what's happening in the United States and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Well, last year was great. So, so you got a great lineup of speakers. Can we see some of the speakers, Bruce? That's on. There we go. Look at that. What is that? 12 speakers. So, what are some of the issues, and who are some of the speakers coming, Bob?
Well, we've got Seth Andrews, and then we have you and Annie Laurie, and then it's Jerry Camara, and then Dave Warnock, and then Greta Vosper, then Drew Breckus, then Dr. Josh Bowen, and Hammett Mehta, Matt Dillahunty, David Fitzgerald, and Aaron Raw.
Wow.
So we had to change a couple of times during our conference, but you know, when I judge a conference, I think we're right at the top of the list on all classifications. And when I say that, I mean, when you look at lineup, you cannot get a better lineup than we've got. It's a superior, well thought and a good lineup. We have a great location. We're right on the border of Michigan. You just come over the bridge and we're right there. We're within a day's drive of millions of people from, from Toronto that way to Cleveland and Indianapolis, Chicago, and all that stuff. Right. And then the third thing is the value. I look at the value on ours when I compare it to other conferences. I don't know of another conference that has as many meal functions. We have 7 meal functions at our conference. And it starts out on Saturday and Sunday morning, buffet breakfast. We have a VIP dinner on Friday night. And then we have a luncheon on Saturday. And then we have a dinner. It's all in our total experience package. All of that's included. And with the exchange rate, it works out to be in the neighborhood of about $265 American, which is a real bargain, you know.
Well, last year I had to go on a little diet after the conference. That was really a lot of fun. So, yes, you do have a good lineup. You have Annie Laurie Gaylor, and you have Greta Vosper, who is an atheist, who is a pastor of a church in Canada. And you have Drew Breckus, another former preacher, and you have Jeremiah Camara right there in the top in the middle. Jeremiah, the filmmaker and the author, who happens to be on the board, the national board of the Freedom from Religion Foundation. Aaron Raw and Matt Dillahunty are just powerhouse. What would you call them? Atheist apologists, I suppose, or defenders of atheism. And Hammett, of course, is a very popular speaker. And Josh Bowen with his writings about the Bible and so on. Did I miss talking about somebody? Oh, David Fitzgerald, also another well-known author. And but then one of the big stars, of course, is Dave Warnock. So Dave, you're going to let the Spirit lead you, I suppose, like before. Briefly, just very briefly, tell our viewers who don't know about your story as a minister, why you left the ministry, and what is your current tour all about?
Yeah, I don't know that I would call me one of the big stars. When I look at that lineup, I think, my God, I'm lucky to be invited to that group. But also, I don't know if you remember this, Dan. Last year, we had at that conference, I want to say 10, maybe 12 members of the Clergy Project.
Yeah, that's right.
And we took that big group photo, remember? I think there were 10 of us. And it was the largest gathering of TCP members in one spot that we had experienced, that the TCP had ever, to my knowledge. So that was really fun. But my deconstruction was about a dozen years ago, my deconversion from Christianity. I was, as you know, a former minister, and as you were, and you and I connected through the Clergy Project at the beginning of my deconversion. You were very instrumental in that process, and I've talked about that a lot. In fact, I wrote about it in my book, my memoir, Childish Things. You were the first person that I talked to after I deconverted, after I realized I no longer believed. Didn't know anyone else that had been through that. And I found you on the internet and reached out to you, and we connected. And that was my way into the Clergy Project. And the rest is, as they say, history. But I began my current tour, as you say, dying out loud, when I got diagnosed with ALS about a little over 4 years ago. And I started talking about living and dying as an atheist, in contrast to my former ideology as a Christian, facing imminent death. ALS is a terminal illness, and so you're given a death sentence and a prognosis of 3 to 5 years. Well, I'm in my 5th year now, so I'm ahead of the curve on that, but it's catching up to me. You'll see a difference in me from this year as opposed to last year, in terms of how I move and how I can walk and so on. If I go to very many more of these conferences, I'm going to have to build a ramp up to the stage. I won't be able to step up to the stage to speak. But so far, I've still been able to do that. And I've done a lot of conferences this year. This will be the last one, I think, that I have scheduled this year. But I'm talking about, I was kidding about letting the Spirit lead, because as we know, there is no Holy Spirit. It's all in our heads as Christians. But I talk about dying out loud, essentially, the message of how to face death as an atheist, how to make the most of the one life we know we have, and how to make the most of the moments that are out there. And then the organization, the nonprofit that we started this year called I Am Dying Out Loud, is an instrument that we use or an organization that we hope to help people advocate for themselves in the area of healthcare, and especially facing death, pushing back against religious intrusion in the areas of healthcare. When people go into the hospitals, having an advance directive so that they don't have nurses or hospital people praying for them or sending chaplains to them if they don't want them, those kind of things. Essentially, freedom from religion in the healthcare world. That's what I Am Dying Out Loud is all about.
So it looks like in spite of the physical degeneration, that it looks like your mind and your brain is as sharp as ever. Is that common with Lou Gehrig's disease?
Yeah, the problem is my brain was never sharp to begin with, so I just have to make do with what I have. But yeah, that is true, Dan. That's a good observation. One of the tragedies of ALS is essentially you're the person you've always been mentally, and you get trapped in this body that's continually failing you, and it basically disintegrates around you, and yet you're the same person with the same cognitive ability you've always had. And it's torturous, because you want to do the things you've always done, and you think the same way you always have. You just can't do them. Your body has made you a prisoner, and it doesn't respond to what your brain is telling it to do. And it can be frustrating, to be honest, but you just have to make adjustments and acknowledge that this is the reality that you live with, and then just adjust as best you can to that reality.
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to what you might say as the non-spirit moves you. All of us know that none of us are getting out of this alive. We all know that, but in your case, you can see is it the end of the tunnel or the beginning of the tunnel? In your case, you can see it more closely. And any thoughts about, I mean, we're natural organisms and there's no life after death. Any thoughts to our viewers about handling mortality when you know it's so real?
Yeah, I have a weekly show online, a YouTube show called Dying Out Loud. And we talk about that a lot on there, and take calls from viewers. But I think the main point I try to make, and anywhere I talk, is, like you said, Dan, we know cognitively we're all going to die. We know that that's the thing we all have in common. Two things we all have in common. We've all been born and we're all going to die. I think dealing with our mortality and coming to terms with that reality that I am going to die. Now, what can I do between the time I've been born and the time I'm going to die? What can I do with the life that I have, the one life we know we have? How do I make the most of it? How do I make sure that I'm living a quality life, that I'm writing the story that I want to write and not just letting life pass me by? That's a big part of what I talk about and what I find to be the most important thing about this life that we have. Am I living it on my terms? And am I setting myself up to where I can die on my terms as much as the law of the land will allow me to?
Yeah. Well, Dave, I bet you were a good preacher. I can just tell from the way you talk. You have that motivating spirit about yourself. So, well, we're looking forward to that. And Bob, as a lifelong were you a lifelong non-believer, Bob, or were you raised in religion?
No, I've been a lifelong non-believer.
So why do you care? Why do you care so much?
Well, the reason I care, and I have grandkids and people that are affected by religion. If religion didn't affect our government, our health care, and our education, I wouldn't care either. But when I see all the damage that they're doing, it just bothers me. I just got to do my part, you know. Yeah. And I should add right now, speaking about Dave, we did a poll after our conference last year as best we could, and I want to tell Dave, he was tops. More people requested him to come back than anybody.
Wow.
But anyway, if you want to get back, I work on 2. I don't need 10 commandments. I only have 2. And I look at everything I do under is it fair and is there any harm? Everything I do, I measure those 2 things. I say, you know, am I being fair to somebody? And is it doing any harm? And I always relate to the story that, Dan, you told about the lady that came to the door one time and her husband beat her up and stuff like that. And you expressed about lying sometimes can be absolutely the best thing you can do. And I go by that principle too. Lying can be the best thing you can do.
So you're talking about the question that we atheists get asked all the time. If there's no God, how can we be moral? How can we be good? And I think you summed it up pretty nicely there. Is it fair? Is it fair? And does it cause any harm? Would you agree, Dave, as far as morality goes?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a good illustration of when it's the right thing to do to be dishonest, if you will. It's about doing no harm and what is the best thing in any current situation about what's going to be the best for whoever is in the middle of that. You know, when we look at the I Am Dying Out Loud organization, some people might say, well, what's the harm in a chaplain coming to your hospital room to pray for you? Well, it's harm if the person doesn't want that. And the first rule in medicine is first do no harm. And so that's what you have to factor in. What's this individual's desire about harm or no harm? And everything's not the same for every person.
Yeah, that happened to my mom. One of the last visits to the hospital before she died, somebody found out that she had no religion. Somebody must have looked at her chart, because they ask you, what is your religious preference? And in the middle of the night, my dad was gone for some reason, these two interns came in and started praying with her. And she was drugged, and she was like, you know, not knowing, and it was almost like two demons were attacking her. They were praying in the name of Jesus that she would, and she was all alone. And she said, "Well, where's my husband?" "Well, why do you want to know where he is?" It was horrible having that religious presence in the hospital. And I think that was malpractice that they allowed those people to do that.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing we contend, is that it's based upon the preference of the person. If they want a religious presence in the room, then they should be allowed to have that. If they don't want it, it should not be imposed upon them. It's that simple.
Yeah. So, Bob, before we take questions, let's remind viewers how they can find out about BAHACON. And I think we have a link at our page, ffrf.org/BAHACON. You can go there to find out how to, ffrf.us/BAHACON, where anyone can register there. And Sarnia, by the way, is just about an hour north of Detroit. Do you have more you want to say about BAHACON, Bob, before we take some questions?
Yeah, I just, for those who were there last year, the hotel was under construction. It's being branded into a 4-point Sheraton, but they have put a brand spanking new hall in there. And when we were budgeting, we had about $4,800 budgeted for the AV to bring in speakers and projectors and all the stuff you need. But the hotel put all that stuff in. It was in there. We didn't have to spend a nickel on that stuff. And the rest of the hotel, you just can't believe how gorgeous it is right now. So people that were there last year are going to really be shocked when they see how nice it is. And the biggest compliments we got last year was the food. People just raved how great the food was. And so we're putting a bigger challenge on this year, because we've got 7 different functions. And so when someone comes to our conference, everything's taken care of. They don't have to worry about any meals or anything like that, you know.
So that's August 25th through 27th, right?
Yes. Yeah.
The last weekend of the month of August in Sarnia, where you cross over that beautiful, there's a couple of beautiful long bridges that go in over the river into Canada. And if you want to fly there, you can fly to Detroit, or you can drive over from the Toronto area as well.
What we've got this year also, there's a shuttle service out of Detroit that people can shuttle down and get the shuttle for about $75, which was kind of new. Yeah. The other thing is that we're getting 2/3 of the people or so, or maybe even 75%, are coming from the United States. We have people coming already from 17 different states. And for those who are worrying about, you know, crossing the border and all this stuff, needing passports, all you need is one of those enhanced license plates, or license with your picture on, or a regular driver's license with a birth certificate. Or you can, if you got a Nexus card or a passport, it's great, but you don't need that. It's very simple to come over the border.
Well, we'll be doing it in a few weeks, so it'll be really fun to see you and you, Dave, as well. We have some questions. Maybe you can help us answer them. One of the questions says, "I wish I could attend the conference. What's the best way to find events for freethinkers to attend in my area?" Well, with FFRF, you can go to our webpage, ffrf.org. We have a drop-down that says events and meetings at ffrf.org, and then you can see any events that our organization is either putting on or co-sponsoring, if any of our attorneys or myself or Annie Laurie are out speaking or attending. And what would you recommend, Dave, as far as your speaking events?
Well, we post anything I'm speaking at on our website, daveoutloud.org. There's really not one central location that I'm aware of that lists all the conferences that are happening around the country or between America and the U.S. and Canada. But I guess another way is if there are speakers that you are interested in hearing, usually they will have, like on Seth Andrews' website, I know he lists on where he's going to be speaking, like I do on mine. So that may be another way to find events in your area, or to look up chapters like American Atheist or American Humanist in local areas, and look to see if there's anything happening in your state or in your region that you may not be aware of.
There's another question for you, Dave. Did your priorities change much after receiving the ALS diagnosis?
Not really. No, I think I had when I deconstructed my Christianity and realized that this life was all we had and there was no afterlife, I really kind of focused on making the most of this life and carpe diem, so to speak. But when I got diagnosed, I guess I just kind of put the hammer down on that. I kind of accelerated the gas on that, and the priority didn't shift, but it became more. There was more of an urgency to that priority, I guess you would say.
So, well, I don't know how to answer this next question. Is BAHACON coming to Texas? Texas probably has some blue water areas, but do you have any plans of expanding BAHACON, Bob, or are you going to just keep it there in Sarnia?
No, we're hoping it to be an annual event here, and that's not big. I always remember Annie Laurie saying to me one time about it's a big responsibility putting on a conference, and I can't agree with her more. Yeah. There's a lot of work to it, but I'm happy to do it. And I'll just mention, when you mentioned where people can find about conferences, and Dave mentioned about Seth Andrews, the Thinking Atheist site, I like the way he lists all the events, whether he's going or not going. He lists them all, and I like that. So that's a good site to go to. But no, people got to come to us, you know. But we have people coming from as far away as California, Minnesota, New York, Florida, all over, Texas, Missouri. People are coming from all over. It just amazed me how many people are coming from a ways away.
Will there be a piano there this year?
Oh yeah, and I'm hoping you're going to play again.
I'll do some boogie woogie, and I'll do Nothing Fails Like Prayer. Well, thank you, both of you. Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Dave, for being with us today. And we're looking forward to another fun conference of BAHACON at the last weekend of August. So thanks for being with us.
Looking forward to it. Seeing you and Annie Laurie and Bob and everybody.
So that's our show for today, but we also have a radio show. Don't miss Free Thought Radio. And this week, Annie Laurie and I will be revisiting a presentation at our 2022 National Convention, a speech by psychologist and author Hector Garcia about religion and biology and sex. So you can find out more at ffrf.org/radio. And if you want more information about the Freedom from Religion Foundation, check out our website at ffrf.org. And if you're a member already, thank you for being a member. And if not, we invite you to join us. We'll see you next week on FFRF's Ask an Atheist.